My wife of 10 years left me with 2 young kids for a wealthy guy. 2 years later, I met her again and it was truly poetic. She walked away, Miranda, chasing a so-called better life with a wealthy man, leaving me behind with 2 little kids and a heart shattered beyond recognition. For 2 years, I picked up the pieces, raised our children, and tried to move on. Then one day, by pure chance, I saw her again. And in that moment, seeing her life, her eyes, everything she'd traded, I couldn't help but feel it was poetic. That was the day I started believing in karma. You never think the person you've shared a decade with will become a stranger. My wife, Miranda, and I had been together for 10 years. A full decade of shared memories, everyday routines, and what I had believed was a strong partnership. Together, we had built a life that, while not perfect, felt solid and real. We had 2 wonderful daughters, Sophie, who had just turned 5, and Emily, who was 4. They were full of energy, laughter, and curiosity, and they brought so much joy to our home. Life had its ups and downs, but we were a team, or so I thought. We shared responsibilities, love, and what I believed was a future that we were shaping together. Financially, we weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. I earned enough from my job to give us a decent life. We weren't living in luxury, but we had what we needed. Our bills were paid, our home was warm, and we managed to take family vacations twice a year, small trips, sometimes to the beach or the mountains, but they were ours, and they mattered. We made memories during those trips, photos filled with sunshine, sticky ice cream hands, and bedtime giggles in hotel beds. Miranda worked from home as a freelancer, which gave her some flexibility. We had a part-time nanny to help with the girls during the day, giving Miranda space to focus on her projects. I made sure I did my share at home too. I never wanted her to feel like the housework was only her responsibility. I cleaned every week, took care of the grocery shopping, and even cooked meals when I could. I tried to be present, not just physically, but emotionally too. I thought that mattered. I thought we were in it together. But slowly, things began to change. At first, it was subtle, small things that I couldn't quite explain. I started noticing that Miranda was spending a lot more time on her phone. She would sit for hours, scrolling and typing, her face lit up by the soft glow of the screen late into the night. The light from her phone seemed to highlight how distant she had become. One night, trying to be casual, I asked her, "Who are you talking to?" "Friends," she answered, almost too quickly. "Just catching up." Her tone was light, but something about it felt off. Her responses were too smooth, too rehearsed. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I brushed it off, at first. Then, her social media accounts began to look different. New photos popped up almost every day. There were pictures of her smiling at coffee shops, holding shopping bags, posing with people I didn't recognize. These were people she had never mentioned to me, people who weren't a part of our shared circle. And while she looked happy in those photos, at home she was distant, distracted. Her face carried a tiredness that had little to do with sleep and everything to do with absence. The girls noticed too. Miranda spent less and less time with Sophie and Emily. When they came to her with drawings or asked her to play, she brushed them off without even looking up from her screen. "Not now, sweetie," she would say, her voice absent, her fingers still moving across her phone. I saw the confusion in our daughters' eyes, the quiet disappointment when their mother didn't seem to see them. The warmth in our marriage faded as well. The easy laughter we used to share disappeared. The late-night talks that once kept us connected became quiet evenings filled with silence. Sometimes I would look at her across the dinner table and wonder where she had gone. The woman I had built a life with felt like a stranger now, someone with a secret she didn't want to share. She started going out more. Sometimes she said she was going shopping. Other times, she said she just needed to clear her head. I didn't want to be controlling, so I let it go. But every time she left, she came back looking different. Lighter. Happier. There was a new energy in her, a smile that hadn't been there when she was at home. At dinner, she would pick at her food, clearly distracted. Her body was present, but her mind was elsewhere. And no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't seem to bring her back. I made efforts to reconnect. I asked if she wanted to go on a date night, just the 2 of us. I planned small surprises, brought home her favorite snacks, suggested we watch a movie together like we used to. But it all seemed to bounce off her like rain on glass. I was reaching for her, but she was already drifting. Then came the moment that shattered everything. It was a quiet afternoon. I was just walking through the kitchen, Nothing unusual about the day. Miranda was drying her hands with a dish towel. She turned to me, looked me dead in the eye, and said the words that would undo everything we had built together. "I'm leaving, Charlie." I froze mid-step, trying to process what I'd just heard. The words didn't make sense at first, like they had been spoken in another language. "Leaving? What are you talking about?" I asked, trying to hold on to something real. But her expression didn't change. Her voice didn't waver. "I can't live this life anymore," she said. "I've found myself, and I know what I want. I'm not meant to be stuck here cooking and cleaning after you." I stood there, stunned. My mind raced for something to hold on to. "Miranda, we have 2 kids." She didn't blink. "You'll manage. You're a great dad. Better than I've ever been as a mom." My heart cracked. I felt it, the physical pain of it. I couldn't stop the tears. "What about Sophie and Emily?" I asked, my voice shaking. "They're just babies, Miranda." Tears streamed down my face, but I didn't care. Who says men can't cry? The last time I cried had been from joy, the day I held Emily in my arms for the first time. But this was something else. This was grief. This was loss. She looked tired of the conversation, like it was something she had already gone over many times in her head. "I need freedom, Charlie. I need to be happy. I can't do this anymore." I was still trying to find the right words, to pull her back from the edge. "And what about us?" I asked. "The life we built together, doesn't that matter?" But her answer came quickly, almost coldly. "It's not enough for me anymore." And just like that, it was over. She declared she was leaving, grabbed her suitcase without hesitation, and stormed out the door. The slam behind her wasn't just a loud noise, it felt like the final closing of a chapter. That door didn't just shut physically. It slammed shut on our lives, our shared dreams, our family. Just like that, she was gone. It's hard to put into words the way the room felt after she left. Cold. Empty. Like all the warmth had been drained out with her. The kind of silence that followed wasn't peaceful or gentle. It was heavy, sharp. The kind of silence that screamed. Louder than any argument we'd ever had. There was no shouting match, no broken plates, no final hug goodbye. Just her back, her suitcase, and that slam. That night, I couldn't move from the couch. I sat there in shock, still trying to process what had happened. My mind was spinning, but my body couldn't seem to follow. Hours passed in a blur, but I didn't notice. At some point, I felt a small tug on my sleeve. Sophie, my oldest, stood beside me in her pajamas, her eyes wide and worried. "Daddy," she whispered, "is Mommy mad at us? Is she coming back?" I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. How do you explain something like this to a 5-year-old? How do you tell your child that their mother chose to walk away, not just from me, but from all of us? From her daughters, from the home we made, from the life we were still living? The days that followed were brutal. I wasn't just heartbroken, I was completely shattered. Eating became a chore I couldn't bring myself to do. Nights were sleepless. My bed felt too big, too quiet, too wrong. But the hardest part of it all wasn't her absence, it was what she left behind. The kids. The questions. Their hope. Sophie and Emily kept waiting for her. They believed with full hearts that Mommy would come home soon. Every knock at the door made their heads turn. Every ring of the phone lit up their faces. And every time it wasn't her, their hope dimmed just a little more. Meanwhile, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Texts. Missed calls. Voicemails from friends and family who'd heard the news. "Charlie, is it true? What happened? Why would Miranda do this?" I didn't know what to say. I didn't have answers. I didn't even understand it myself. I felt ashamed. Ashamed that I hadn't seen it coming. Ashamed that I couldn't hold my family together. Ashamed that I had no words to explain why the woman I loved had run away from it all. So, I started dodging those calls. I let the messages pile up. I told myself I'd respond later, but later never came. What could I even say? I stumbled through those first few weeks, clinging to a routine like it was a lifeline. I woke up, packed the girls' lunches, dropped them off at daycare. I worked my shift, trying to focus, even though my mind was always somewhere else. After work, I picked them up, made dinner, cleaned the kitchen, helped with their bedtime, and finally collapsed on the couch. I sat in the same place every night, staring at the empty cushion beside me. The spot where Miranda used to sit. Her laugh used to echo in that room. Now, it was just silence and memories. Then, one night, everything inside me twisted when I saw her face again, on Instagram. There she was. Miranda. Wearing a sleek, expensive-looking dress, sipping champagne on the deck of a yacht. Her skin glowed, her smile wide and carefree. And standing beside her was a man named Marco. He looked polished and rich, dressed in a designer suit, his arm comfortably draped around her waist like it belonged there. I muttered to myself, scrolling through her profile. Who is this Marco? Photo after photo filled the screen. Trips to Paris. Candlelit dinners in 5-star restaurants. Sunset selfies on white sand beaches. She looked happy. So happy. Like she hadn't just walked out on 2 daughters who still asked about her every day. Like the family she left behind was just some distant dream she had woken up from. The next morning, Sophie came up to me with a crayon drawing clutched in her small hands. She held it up proudly. It was a picture of our family, me, her, and Emily. And beside us, a blank space outlined in soft pink. "That's for Mommy," she said quietly. "So she can come back when she's ready." I nodded, my throat tightening. My heart shattered all over again, breaking in places I didn't know were still broken. But I didn't cry in front of her. I just hugged her and said nothing. I couldn't take away her hope, even if mine had long since faded. From that moment on, I knew I had to keep moving. Not for me, but for them. For the girls. I threw myself into fatherhood like never before. I worked harder, saved more, showed up to every school event, every birthday party, every scraped knee and bad dream. We built our own little world together. There were pancake Saturdays, where we'd make a mess of the kitchen and laugh until our stomachs hurt. Dance parties in the living room to silly music. Quiet bedtime stories that ended with soft kisses and whispered, "We love you, Daddy." 2 years passed. And though I was tired, I was solid. I had grown into someone dependable. Someone present. Someone who no longer needed to look backward. I didn't think about Miranda anymore. At least, that's what I told myself. Then came that Wednesday. It was an ordinary day, one of those where everything blurs together. After work, I went to the supermarket to grab groceries. I was in the produce section, picking up apples, when I looked up and saw her. At first, I wasn't sure. Her hair was dull, lifeless. Her clothes were wrinkled, not at all the designer outfits I remembered from social media. Her face, God, her face, looked pale and hollow, tired in a way that no makeup could hide. The spark in her eyes was gone. For a split second, I thought I was imagining things. Surely, this couldn't be the same woman who had looked so carefree on that yacht, laughing with Marco under golden sunlight. I had assumed she'd be married by now, still living her glamorous life. But it was her. And in that moment, everything I thought I'd buried came rushing back. The woman standing in front of me that day in the supermarket wasn't the glowing, carefree person from the Instagram photos. No, she looked nothing like the Miranda I used to know. She looked like someone who had weathered a long, cold storm. The same woman who had once so easily walked away from the beautiful nest we had built together, the home, the children, the love, was now standing there, clutching a plastic bag of carrots like it was some kind of shield. "Miranda," I said, my voice rising in disbelief as I stepped toward her. She froze when she heard my voice, like she'd just been caught doing something she wasn't supposed to. Her eyes flicked to the side, looking for an escape, her body tense. She looked like she might bolt. "It's me," I said again, softer this time. "Charlie." But she didn't respond. Instead, she turned on her heel and walked away, quickening her pace with every step. I followed, confusion rising like a tide. My legs moved automatically, my mind trying to make sense of what was happening. "Hey, wait. What's going on? Why are you running from me?" She didn't answer. She practically sprinted out of the store, pushing through the doors and disappearing into the parking lot. And just like that, she was gone again. I stood there in the middle of the cereal aisle, my heart pounding. Around me, other shoppers kept moving like nothing had happened. But I was frozen, staring at the spot where she had been just seconds before. What the hell had just happened? That night, I couldn't shake the image of her face, the fear in her eyes, the way she avoided me, the way she looked like a ghost of the woman she used to be. On a whim, I called her old number. I didn't expect her to answer. It rang 3 times before cutting off. I figured she was avoiding me again. But then, just a minute later, a text buzzed on my phone. "Miranda, fine. Let's meet tomorrow. At the park. 6 p.m. I stared at the message, unsure how to feel. I didn't know what to expect. Part of me still remembered the version of her I had seen online, dressed in designer clothes, sipping champagne, looking like she had stepped out of a luxury magazine. But that wasn't the woman I saw the next evening. When I arrived at the park at 6 o'clock, I spotted her sitting alone on a bench. The sunlight hit her from behind, but it didn't make her shine. She looked tired. Her clothes were simple, her shoulders slouched. Her hands were fidgeting in her lap like she didn't know what to do with them. She looked up as I approached, and there was no spark in her eyes. "Charlie," she mumbled. I sat down at the far end of the bench, giving her space. My heart was beating hard, but my voice came out steady. "You ran from me yesterday," I said. "Why? And what happened to you?" She exhaled sharply, keeping her eyes on her hands. Her voice was small. "Because I didn't want you to see me like this." "Like what?" She looked up for a second, her voice cracking. "Like a failure." I blinked, taken aback. "What happened, Miranda? What happened to Marco? The yachts? The perfect life you gave everything up for?" Her lip trembled. The tears came quickly, silently sliding down her cheeks. She didn't even try to hide them. "He was a fraud, Charlie," she said. "He wasn't some wealthy businessman. He was a con artist. He drained everything. My savings. The inheritance Grandma left me. Every last dollar. And when the money was gone, he left." I sat back, stunned. I didn't know what to say. "Are you serious?" She nodded, wiping her face with the sleeve of her shirt. "I thought he loved me. I thought I'd finally found something real. But it was all a lie. Everything." My jaw clenched. My voice was low but hard. "Yeah, well, you destroyed your family chasing that lie." She didn't argue. Her voice came out in a whisper. "I know. And I regret it. Every single day." I looked away, staring at the kids playing in the distance. The wind rustled the trees, and everything felt heavier than it should have. "Didn't you feel even a little guilty?" I asked. "For what you did? For what you left behind?" She sniffled and wiped her tears again. Her voice was nearly gone. "I didn't want you to see me like this, Charlie. I was going to come back, once I got a job, once I looked respectable again. I didn't want the girls to see me like this. But I want to come back now. I want to fix this. I want to see my kids." I stared at her, trying to process what I was feeling. There were so many emotions fighting for space in my chest: anger, sadness, confusion, even pity. 2 years ago, she had walked away like our life meant nothing. She had left me alone with 2 little girls who still whispered her name in the dark. And now, here she was, sitting on a park bench, asking to be part of their lives again. I thought about all the nights I had cried after putting the girls to bed, quietly, so they wouldn't hear. I thought about the mornings I dragged myself through the routine, trying to stay strong even when everything felt like it was falling apart. I thought about Sophie, holding her crayon drawings and leaving a blank space for her mother. I thought about Emily's tiny hand in mine, asking if Mommy still loved them. And now, Miranda was sitting here, wanting to return, as if the past 2 years could be erased. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask her why we were never enough. Why she gave up everything we had for a dream that didn't exist. Why she had to destroy everything just to find out it was all a lie. But my voice stayed quiet. Instead, a thought crept into my mind, unwanted and unshakable. Am I being too cruel? She looked so broken, so human. Not the distant woman from Instagram. Not the stranger from the supermarket. Just Miranda, the woman I had once loved. The mother of my daughters. Sitting here now with nothing but regret. And I didn't know what to do. A small voice inside me stirred as I sat there on that park bench beside Miranda. It whispered almost gently, "Maybe she's suffered enough. Maybe you should give her a chance." It tugged at the part of me that once loved her. The part that remembered laughter in our kitchen, sleepy Sunday mornings, and the promises we made when we were young and full of hope. But just as quickly, something else rose inside me, something stronger. I remembered Emily's tiny arms wrapped around my neck as I tucked her into bed. I remembered her wild giggle as I chased her down the hallway in our little game of tag. I remembered Sophie standing on stage at her school recital, searching the crowd with wide eyes until she spotted me. I remembered her smile then, proud, joyful, because her daddy was there, just like always. That was when the warmth I almost felt turned into fire. I turned to Miranda, my chest tight with anger. She sat next to me, fragile and folded into herself, but I couldn't forget everything she'd done. "Fix this," I said, my voice hard and flat. "You think you can just walk back into our lives like none of it happened?" She opened her mouth quickly, her voice trembling. "Please, Charlie. Please, just give me one chance," but I shook my head before she could finish. "No," I said firmly. "You don't get to see the girls. Not after abandoning them the way you did. I don't even know how you can call yourself a mother after what you chose. You traded your children for money. For a fantasy. They deserved better. So did I." Her tears started flowing again. She cried quietly, her shoulders shaking, her eyes filled with sorrow. But I didn't look away. I didn't soften. Not this time. "They're happy, Miranda," I continued. "They've moved on. And so have I." I stood up, brushing the bench behind me with one hand, as if trying to shake off the moment. She looked up at me, desperate, but I had no more words for her. No more sympathy. I looked her in the eye one last time. "I hope you figure out your life," I said. "But you're not going to fix it at our expense. Goodbye, Miranda." And with that, I walked away. By the time I got home, the sun had started to sink. The golden light poured through the windows, and before I could even take off my shoes, the girls came running toward me. Sophie grabbed my hand first, bouncing on her toes. "Daddy, can we make pancakes?" I smiled and knelt down to hug her, her little arms wrapping around me just like Emily's had the night before. "Of course we can, princess." Emily tugged on my shirt next. Her eyes were wide with excitement. "Can we put sprinkles on them?" I laughed. "You got it, sweetheart." In the kitchen, we mixed the batter together, the girls each taking turns to stir with far too much enthusiasm. The smell of pancakes filled the air, sweet and warm. It wrapped around me like a soft blanket, and for the first time in a long time, I felt it, peace. As I watched Sophie and Emily dump way too many rainbow sprinkles on the pancakes, giggling and sneaking spoonfuls of whipped cream, I realized something. Miranda had made her choices. She had chased something she thought would bring her happiness. And now, she had to live with the results. But I had made my choice, too. I had chosen to stay. To be there for our daughters. To pick up the broken pieces and turn them into something new. Something strong. Something full of love. And I had no regrets. Sophie took a big bite and beamed at me through a mouthful of syrup. "Daddy, these are the best pancakes ever." I ruffled her hair and laughed, feeling the weight of the past slowly fade. "I think so too, sweetie." Miranda thought freedom meant leaving us behind. But she didn't understand what real happiness looked like. I did. It was right here, sitting at the table in pajamas, with syrup-sticky fingers and laughter filling the room. And that, I thought as I poured more batter into the pan, felt pretty poetic.